Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
How can we obtain pure copper sulfate from an impure sample? Now, copper sulfate is a compound, and here we have impure sample. Impure sample means it contains certain impurities. Now, as I told you at the very beginning of the chapter, that in science we do not have the concept of impurity. So here basically it's meant to be said that it is a mixture. We have copper sulfate and we have certain unwanted things in the form of mixture. And how do we separate them? Now this can be separated by the process of crystallization. Now what is the process of crystallization? For this, what do? We take a beaker of water. So we fill half of it with water, and then what do is that we keep on adding copper sulfate to it. So initially what we had already learned when we were doing solution, that first it forms unsaturated solution, then it forms saturated solution, and after we heat it and cool it, it becomes a supersaturated solution. So basically our idea is that we prepare a supersaturated solution of copper sulfate. Now once we have made supersaturated solution of copper sulfate, we pour it down onto a china dish and leave it undisturbed for few hours. If possible, we leave it for an overnight. The next morning when you will open and see, you can find that crystals of copper sulfate being deposited at the base of the china dish. Now what does it signify? How did it happen? When we made supersaturated solution, the amount of solute was in excess in the solvent. And when did it happen? When we heated it. So at a higher temperature, when we have excess of solute in the solvent, then we tend to make a supersaturated solution. Now when this supersaturated solution at high temperature is brought down to the room temperature, then the solute particles tends to coagulate together, come together and form crystals. Now this supersaturated copper sulfate solution, when it is taken in the china dish, we see that there would be crystals of copper sulfate separating out. And you know why does it happen? That when we make a supersaturated solution, we increase the temperature. That means we give energy to the solvent particles so that they can space up, and due to the creation of new space, more solutes takes its position. Now when we bring it down to the room temperature, we find that these solute particles are being forced out of their positions and they come together to form crystals. While this is happening, the impurities does not form the crystals, they remain in the solution, whereas the pure copper sulfate starts coming together to form crystals of copper sulfate, crystals of pure copper sulfate. So with this method, we can separate and purify copper sulfate from the impure sample. Now, till so far, we had learned so many different kinds of techniques of separation. Taking all this into account, let us try to see some questions related to it.